Can I have the next slide, please? Okay, so we'll first talk about staff returning to campus. Before we start, I want to give a really big thank you to our frontline workers. So there are many workers that have been here all along, who kind of didn't have a choice to work from home, who really needed to be here. And I just want to kind of call you out because we are really grateful. So it's cafeteria workers, front office staff, IT, bus garage, maintenance staff, business services, adult school, and many others. So lots and lots of people who've been here. And I just want to give you a shout out. We really appreciate you. Okay. So all staff is going to be asked to return to campus soon. We are going to do this safely and we will do it with care. We are working on that return date and we will be messaging that out to you, but we wanted to put it out there now so that people have their heads sort of shift into that thinking. Why do we think it's safe now? Well, as you can see, this has been a year. As you know, it's been a year. And we started with, spring of 2020 when we went into emergency distance learning. In the summer, we were planning for distance learning instruction. And then in the fall, we adopted distance learning. As we moved into purple tier and things got really, really tight, we decided not to come back in hybrid at the time. We decided to make a plan for a small group return in December. And as we move now into the month of March, we find ourselves in a new and better situation. We have lower infection rates. We've got vaccinations happening. I think it's about 45% of our staff actually 45% of our staff has received the first vaccination at least. And there are policy shifts that are allowing us to return in a way that we think is safe. So you may have noticed that the last couple of board meetings, we talked about athletics. The board did give the go-ahead to move into season 2 athletics, and then also football, which is a season 1 sport. And on March 16th, so this next board meeting, we will have the MOU, an updated return to school for small group instruction MOU, which will also include a staff return. So right now, the district and AFT are working on that. I want to thank everybody who's involved in that because it really is a group effort. In addition to that MOU that you will see on March 16th, we are also going to bring our return to campus for hybrid instruction for discussion with the board. And if the board approves us and tells us to move forward, we will then submit that plan to the County Office of Education and the Health Department. So coming this semester, we would really like to see a return to in-person instruction for both small groups and hopefully hybrid. And as I said, we're working out that hybrid plan. Okay. Some of the precautions that are very, very important are social distancing, masks, and increasing number of vaccinated staff. So these are all very important in our plan. Some considerations that we want you to know we are hearing you on and we are working on is making sure that everybody who wants a vaccination has access to a vaccination. I want to thank Ms. Baca. I want to thank Candace Bell. I want to thank April Hawkins and the countless people who are helping to navigate these vaccination lists. I actually want to give a shout out to Nancy McGee, our county superintendent, and Patricia Love, who is her communications person, because they've been navigating not only our school district's vaccinations, but I think there are 24 school districts in the county. It's been quite an effort, and we are seeing lots of vaccinations happening. I also want to call out Alyssa Jenkins, who we called out at the board meeting. She's been single-handedly getting people registered, along with Kalima Salahuddin, our board member. So it really has been a team effort, and the information that I have from the county is that we expect all educators who wish to be vaccinated within the next 4 weeks. So that's sounding good to us. We know that another consideration that you have is childcare. So we are working on that in our discussions with the union on how we can make it possible for staff with children to return by offering childcare. We know that there are those of you who have fragile family members or fragile people living in your household. We know that's a consideration of yours. There will be some employees who choose to take a leave of absence, choose not to return to work because of personal decisions, and we understand that. We will work with you. We also know that there will be employees who have their own health conditions who will need to engage in an interactive process. And so we will need to be figuring these out, some one by one, but we are here to work with you on that. Finally, we understand that one of your considerations is that one of your worries really is ventilation. As we've learned through this pandemic, airflow, circulation is more important really than sort of surface cleaning. And ventilation is key to keeping us all safe. So this will be covered at the end of the presentation by Tina Van Rapport. She will speak to that. Okay, so student return to campus. Some students will be allowed to return for small group instruction. We have that MOU already. We are just going to be updating it. And we are currently developing the plan for hybrid instruction. And as I mentioned, the Return to School Committee will meet on Monday, and they will further that plan. We will have a slow return. First, we would like to see a return to campus for staff. So that means all staff returning in person for work. We will have small group instruction. So small groups of students with the greatest needs will return. And then hybrid instruction. Teachers will begin instructing online and in the classroom to some students. We're working on the exact plan, and here we go. So potential hybrid return to school. School will look different than pre-pandemic. Social distancing will be in place. There's not going to be any cafeteria style lunch. We won't be having rallies. And we are going to be encouraging students to walk to class and limit socializing in the hallway. So limited interaction. It will look different. There are two models that we are contemplating. One is Room and Zoom. Students are at home and on campus. Students at home and on campus in the classroom will continue with virtual interaction. Basically, it's one lesson plan for both students in the classroom and at home. Another way of doing hybrid model is a synchronous, asynchronous model. Live in-person lesson for the students on campus and independent work or asynchronous work for the students who are at home. And then they would switch. Virtual instruction for students at home and independent work, asynchronous for students on campus. We'd switch. Two models. How many students may return to campus? Well, students of one grade level who are comfortable will return 1 to 2 times per week, and the grade level will be determined. So I'm going to explain that. So students in one, we won't have all of the students coming at once. It will be the one grade level returning, and then it will incorporate the other grade levels. We're not sure if we will start. We talked about 9th grade students. We talked about 12th grade students. So that decision has not been made yet. And I am seeing chats coming up, but I realize I get distracted by the chat. So we will navigate the chat questions a little bit later. Go ahead and put them in there, but I'm not going to be addressing them in real time. Let's see. The other students that will be returning are high need students. And we're sending an opt-in next week to parents to determine who wants to come back to campus. So all students will not be returning. We know that, but we are going to be offering it, hopefully. Okay. What does soon mean? Oops. So the MOU for small group instruction, that update will happen on March 16th, as I mentioned. It is for small groups for students with most needs as determined by each site. And then we are hoping for a quicker return. The return speed has increased. The first week will be 10% of the students, second week 10 to 25%. So it's happening faster. It will also happen at a different color level than we had previously agreed to, sooner than yellow, in other words. The process is that we are in final stages with the union right now. We will need to have board approval of that MOU after, of course, approval from the union. And then we will also need county approval. Next steps is finalizing that MOU with AFT 1481 for small group instruction and staff return to on-site, and then the return to campus for the hybrid plan. Okay, so I went through those slides rather quickly. What we have done is we have taken many of your questions that you submitted, and Tina and Corrine and I are going to sort of split the questions. We're going to read them off and just read our answers. I want to encourage you to, you can continue putting questions into the chat. I don't know that we're going to be able to answer them in real time, but what we are going to do is to compile an FAQ so that we can send it out to everybody and you'll all have this access to the same questions. Okay. You may also continue using the link that was sent to you to submit questions. We will leave that open. So please know that that's always, you can submit your questions there. Okay. So the questions. Can we repost the link in the chat? I'm looking actually now at the chat. So yes, one of us can. I think April can do that for us. All right. So I apologize. I think I'm supposed to be seeing the questions now. April, do we have those questions?
Yes, they're on the next slide.
Okay. The slideshow went away.
All right, I can present.
Sorry, I got it. Oh,
okay.
Okay.
Go ahead, Tina.
Thank you. Okay. What is the timeline for going back? Next slide.
The answers aren't on here.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
The answers are, okay, here.
Sorry, everyone. We answered these questions in another document and I thought we were going to have them here. So what is the timeline?
Let me share that.
I've got it on another document, so okay. That's okay. So, all right. What is the timeline for going back? We are anticipating a return for staff only within the next month. I'd like to see hybrid instruction this spring. All students will gradually have the opportunity to be on campus if they choose to. They will not all be on campus at the same time, and there will always be masks and social distancing. We're working hard to communicate well with families weekly and staff weekly, and include very clear information on our website that sets expectations about how returning to school will look different. So I know that you all would love to know the exact dates, and I apologize that I'm not sharing those with you right now, but we're working on that. We're working on that agreement with AFT, and the Return to School Committee will be working on it on Monday as well. So you will have hard dates, hopefully, at the beginning of next week. But it is in the coming weeks and month that we'd like to see that happen. And then the next question, what's the motivation for going back? So let's see, the motivation for going back really is the change in the playing field. Stakeholder feedback is important. And of course, we are listening to stakeholders and we are making decisions based upon a number of things. Let's see, the Board of Trustees, Executive Cabinet, the Return to School Committee are very thoughtfully and carefully reviewing guidelines from state and local health officials and following advice from the San Mateo County Office of Education. We are envisioning a return to campus for students who wish to return this semester because we believe it's safe to do so. Since last March, when the pandemic first began, we've been working diligently to implement safeguards to ensure that we'll be able to return safely when it's possible. And we'll talk about some of these safeguards, but medical grade ventilation, etc. The motivation for going back really is that we feel that it's time for our students who wish to be back to be back. We feel that it is safe to do that as long as we're following the 4 pillars. And we would like to see students come back, in the springtime so that we can kind of mitigate some of the issues that people are worried about, and give them a chance to be with their peers. We think that it'll be good for mental health, a lot of different reasons, but mostly that we think it is safe to do so now. Okay, next question. And I'm going to put this one over to Tina to answer.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Ventilation is a very important topic, and we have taken and are continuing to take a number of steps to address this. First, all of the filters on all of our HVAC systems have been switched to hospital-grade MERV 13 filters, which are the ones that are recommended by CDC and the California Department of Health, and they can filter the virus out of the air. Second, the dampers on each and every unit have been opened to their maximum capacity. This maximizes the amount of air from the outdoors that is brought indoors. Third, we are currently having all of the units inspected to ensure they are fully functioning. This inspection should be completed by the end of next week, and we will take whatever steps are necessary to fix any problems that are identified. And fourth, we are going room to room to make sure that each room is directly served by the HVAC system. Sometimes when rooms are converted from one use to another, they don't have direct service from the HVAC system. So those rooms will either be provided with a portable air filter or they will be closed off and not used. Additionally, you may or may not know that we have an HVAC technician on staff as part of our maintenance team, and he is able to electronically monitor the HVAC systems, and he receives alerts if ever there are any malfunctions. So while opening doors and windows can help, having windows that open are not necessary if we have fully functioning HVAC systems. Once we're ready to have people return to campus, we're going to be running those systems 2 hours before school and 2 hours after school to make sure that when people arrive, the air is fresh and that all of the particles are removed at the end of each day. Speaking about offices, if you have an office, you should make sure that you do not spend that you don't spend more than 15 minutes with anyone behind closed doors in your office. Being in the closed office by yourself, of course, is totally safe. And so each school site will need to come up with plans for meeting with students, and best practices for that would be, of course, developing those plans with the people who are using the offices. So for counselors or staff that might need to meet with students, it might mean setting up meeting spaces in larger areas like libraries or breakout rooms, or setting up spaces to meet outside. Is that the last question? I had another question, I think. That's the last question that's on the slideshow. Oh, you're muted again, Tony.
I'm not kidding. That really is the theme of my life right now. We had more questions to share, but I don't see them there. We decided not to take live questions in the chat just because we wanted to make sure we were prepared with answers, but I do see a couple that I can address. Tina, did you?
Oh, I just was going to say before you go to, I think I have one more that I can address too.
Okay.
But go ahead, you go
Why
first.
don't you do yours? And then I just saw a couple that I know that I can address right now.
Okay.
You go first.
One question that I noticed is how many students max would be allowed in each classroom for the teachers or as the teachers return to campus. So Right now, there is no state or county requirement for the space between students in the classroom, only guidance. The guidance varies between 4 feet and 6 feet that are between students, and we know that it would be most safe to be aiming for 6 feet. In a standard classroom without a lot of perimeter furniture, we know we can fit 14 students at 6 feet apart, but right now, either sites have already done this or they're doing it now where the maintenance staff is going through each room by room to measure exactly how many desks can fit in each classroom. And then those numbers will be shared with the principals so that once we know how many students are coming back, like which exact students in which cohort days they're going to be there, we can identify any rooms that might be overfilled. And then for those rooms, we'll figure out solutions such as moving them to a different location or something like that. But what we don't want to do is change student schedules at this time, because that would be very disruptive. So we think we can avoid that by having all of the information and then taking the situations one by one.
Thank you. Thanks, Tina. So I'm going to just kind of go off script here and just look at some of the questions in the chat that I know that I can address easily right now. First of all, several of you are asking about the grade levels that are coming back and encouraging us bringing 12th graders back. So we're talking about that. Initially, we thought 9th graders, and then we've heard a lot of people saying, no, we should start with 12th graders. So thank you for your thoughts on that, and do keep sharing them with us. We're not sure who we will start with right now, but it very well could be. Probably 9th and 12th are the two that really come to the top. Another question that I've seen here had to do with vaccinations. I forget exactly what it said, but it was asking about people who aren't fully vaccinated. So that's exactly what Dana Lujan and Doreen Bassuino have been working with Monica and AFT to figure out all of those specifics. We know that people don't feel safe to come back when they're not vaccinated. So we hear you. And we believe that the plan that we have in place will, I'm fairly certain that we have gotten to a place where it's, fully vaccinated or in the orange tier, that kind of thing, so that people will feel safe to come back when it is time to come back. I also have seen some comments, some questions about, will the board be resuming in-person board meetings? And I understand why you're asking that question. The board is contemplating when they are coming back as well, and I think they will likely come back when they're vaccinated. But these are all things that we are talking about and figuring out right now. I don't have hard answers, but I do want you to know we are considering them. Let's see. Somebody said something about, why are the teachers coming back if the students aren't? We'd like to get staff back on campus to get people acclimated and used to us. Many people have been working from home for a year now. So we know that we feel that we have good processes laid out, but it'll take a minute to get those processes going and to get people feeling comfortable and to get their technology working and everything like that. So we want to do that before the students get here so that we're ready for the students when they do come. Let's see. We're working on, so there is COVID testing in place for employees. There's a question about COVID testing for employees and students. So we do have COVID testing for employees already happening, and that will continue. And it will continue after people are vaccinated. I think that's still an important thing. We are currently, so student vaccinations is the $64,000 question right now in our state, and with I'm talking with superintendents all the time about what we're all doing. There's voluntary testing that is happening through the community. So as you likely know, we have testing 5 days a week here at the district office. There's testing 2 days a week at Jefferson High School. We're now going to be having testing on Saturday mornings at Terra Nova High School. So right now, there is student testing through the community. We may be able to get student testing through the school district, but it's costly, and we're still working on that. There's talk that there might be free student testing, but right now we don't have free student testing. So we will work on that, but we do have community testing. There's a couple questions about funding, and you all know that the governor released a plan. It came out last week, and that does require schools to be back by April 1st to make use of some funds. And we would love to be able to make use of those funds. That's not the only or even the main reason why we're looking at coming back to campus. And so we hope that we'll be able to access some of those funds, basically.
Can I just add real quick?
Yeah, please do.
If we aren't back by April 1st, we still can access some funds.
Thank
There's
you.
a 1% reduction per day that we don't come back. So, and it doesn't, it's only instructional days. It doesn't count weekends or spring breaks. So, so we can still access a good chunk of the funds if we come back shortly after April 1st.
Yeah, thank you for saying that, because we don't, it doesn't mean we need to be back on April 1st in order to access them. There are lots of questions about ventilation, etc. I think, Tina, you spoke to those. COVID tests, I'm super scanning this chat really quickly. Let's see. Tina, did you address the desk spacing in the rooms in your question already?
Yes, I believe that
Okay.
I did. What about, do you know what would, like, whether we would have to open and close depending on testing rates, or any color tiers of our county? That's one question that I see.
That's a good question, and I can't speak to it very thoughtfully. I think that we could have to close, but I don't know the numbers that would make that happen off the top of my head. Yeah. So I'm going to stop scanning these because I haven't read them all. So that is all for us. Corrine, was there anything that you felt it was important to mention before we sign off? We had a couple of questions that I'm putting Corrine on the spot.
I know that there were questions and concerns about students reinforcing wearing masks.
Yeah.
And so with that, we will follow the proper discipline protocols for our students. And also when we ask our parents to say whether they will be in full-time distance learning or hybrid, there will be some, like I read these and acknowledge that these are the safety protocols, and they will sign off on that. And also the family and student training will also have a sign off saying that they've, that they acknowledge that they must wear and practice social distancing.
Good, thanks. Tina?
Corrine, I see another question that Corrine might want to answer is about whether students will have a choice to come back or not.
Yes, so what we will be doing is through Parent View, parents will be able to opt into being in person and hybrid, and we will explain what hybrid will look like to them. But parents also have the option of doing full-time distance learning.
Good. I'm seeing more questions that I can answer here. Someone asked about vaccinations. We are now into group 3. So the county office of ed actually Nancy McGee last night said she was happy to report that they had started contacting staff in group 3 for vaccinations. And that's really good news. We did not think we would be to group 3. Group 3 is most everybody. So group 3 is all of the teachers and staff members who've been working from home. So if you have not been contacted to get your vaccination and you do wish to have a vaccination, you should be contacted very, very soon. I realize that many of us have gotten vaccinations through the FEMA site in Oakland and have had good luck getting vaccinations in other places. But be assured that you will be offered a vaccination from San Mateo County, and it will likely be in this coming week if you haven't been contacted. There was another question that I wanted to address.
There was a question about why do we have to bring the grade levels back instead of academic needs? So we will be bringing for academic needs in small learning pods when we have our small groups. However, we also need to bring at least one grade level back to qualify for funding from the state of California.
I will address too, there was a question, would we be doing this if not for the funding? And yes, we think it's time, we think it's safe. So yes, we would be. There was also a question, can we have an assurance that we'll have a week's notice before you have to start creating new styles of lesson plans? And yeah, that's why we're talking about it now. We want to start talking about it now. We're making plans, and you know, within the next week or so, we're gonna put some dates out there that are tentative, of course. I mean, we have to get approval, but we do want to give you some notice, so it won't be you're gonna come back on Monday. There was another question that I thought was there. I can't find it now, but there was a question about I think of like clubs and, you know, things like that, activities that are not athletics, that are not school, that are not classes, and you know, those will be addressed in the MOU about those groups coming back. There was one more that I wanted to address, but I don't see it now. So I want to thank you for giving us your time. And I want to assure you that if you put a question into this chat, we are saving the chat so that we can look through them and thoughtfully address them. We're going to be holding another webinar. I'm really, you know, I sign off my weekly messages with, you know, my door is open, and, you know, I really do. That's not an empty promise or whatever. That's not an empty offer. If please do reach out. I'm very happy to, you know, receive emails from you and inquiries. If you have questions regarding this return to school, it's nice if you use the link that has been shared, because then we just have them all in the same place. But reach out, and I want to make myself available to you guys to answer your questions. We will be publishing the answers to this FAQ, and I'm going to call on April Hawkins. How are we going to message these answers out for people?
So I just need a little bit of time to finalize the FAQ and make it, you know, pretty for you guys and easy to access, and also pull in these questions. So as soon as they're ready, which I think we can, I would guess without these questions, we can get it done by Monday. And then if we are incorporating these questions too, then I would say Wednesday. And we would message that out I will send a message out to everyone and let you know that it's ready. And I'll also put it on the staff portion of the website.
All right, so you can access it on the staff portion of the website when we've got it all put together. All right. With that, I want to thank you, and I want to thank you for all the work you have done, the work that you will be doing. I want to acknowledge that, you know, this can make people nervous. I know that there are a lot of people who are eager to come back, and I know that there are a lot of people who are not. So I want to tell you that I know that, and I hear you, and I do assure you that we are not going to come back unless we feel confident that we can really keep people safe, and that we have all of the precautions in place that we need to take. With that, I want to say thank you. Have a great weekend, and we'll be talking to you soon. Thank you.